Hey, folks, welcome to this week's episode of What's Bruin. Sorry for the delay here. I had some computer issues. I still don't know what the hell's going on with this thing. It's telling me I have 16 versions of the web browser open and only one is on. So who knows what the hell's going on here. But we are here to talk some Bruins hockey as we are every week. I am joined by the great, the one and only Dom Tiano. Dom, how are you? I know you messaged me earlier that the engine in your private jet is now fixed, so things must be going better for you than me right now.
Well, yeah. I unfortunately at 1 a.m. this morning had the fire alarm in my building go off, and it was 2:30 before the fire department gave the all clear to go back in, and I get up at 4:30 a.m. for work. So
Oh,
here I am because court said I had to show up tonight. So
well, apparently
um,
he messaged you. I'm seeing all the messages from Court and Kevin and all that. Appreciate the concern, though. It is nice to see that, we can't take a week off from this. People want to know where the hell we ended up. So
yeah.
that's always good to see. Appreciate that. Um, but yeah, lots to dive into. I know you were been looking forward to grilling me when it comes to my experience at development camp this past week. So since we're already running late, let's dive right in.
Yeah, so where to start? I'm a firm believer that you cannot, should not put too much emphasis on a development camp.
I agree with that
You
100.
need a whole body of work to make any sort of educated guess. As an example, there's 20 forwards, 11 defensemen, and 4 goaltenders at camp. Okay. How many of the 4 goaltenders, honestly, do you see at the NHL level?
Like playing games at the NHL level.
Yeah.
If things go really well for all four of them, two of them,
I
Bishop
put it
might.
at 0.
I was gonna say I could see Bishop getting a game or two with somebody, and then Sved back maybe some games here and there. Again, I'm not saying we're talking Brodeur like careers. I'm saying they could sniff the league for here and there.
I say 0.
But I could
Svedback had a setback last year,
I was
and
gonna
he
say I could
was,
very easily see none of these four making it though.
yeah, and he was not very good at development camp, and he was the best one of the 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to the 11 defensemen. How many do you realistically see in the NHL for the Boston Bruins? When I say the NHL, I mean the Boston Bruins.
Of the 11, we're talking a minimum of one game.
No. One game is not an NHL
Okay.
career, Chris.
Okay, so you're talking having like a decent I played in the NHL
At
career.
least a year.
Three of them,
Well, I'll
maybe
tell you
four.
how many I
Four?
see. I'll tell you how many I see.
Wait, 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go with. I would go with 6 of them.
I would say 0 on the left
Really?
because you have Lindholm and Zadorov locked up for the next 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
You got Lori that's going to be locked up on a long-term deal. And by the time any of those contracts are gone, the rights to any one of those defensemen is long gone.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. On the right side, I see maybe 2. Maybe Jonathan Mirenberg. All depends on whether he comes over to North America. And Jackson Edward, who is a left shot, but plays the right side. Maybe.
Okay, because you're specifically in reference to the Bruins. I could definitely see upwards of 6 or 7 of them in regards to total NHL career playing for about a year or so. But again, things have to go right, and like you said, it's how much weight do you want to put on the development camp? It really shouldn't be too much. And Kevin is asking, was Bussy too old for development camp?
Yeah, he aged out. He's 26, Kevin.
I will say this. I agree with Court. My biggest takeaway from camp was Poitras will be ready for training camp.
Yeah,
100%.
That's about the biggest takeaway you can take from this camp. Like up front, Jake Schmaltz is not an NHL player.
No, he
right?
did have a good training camp, but I would agree with that. He doesn't.
Okay.
He's not.
Everybody's raving about Riley Duran and the camp that he had, and I'm not for 1 second doubting that he had a good camp. But you were there. Everything I've been saying about Trevor Kuntar for months is what people are now saying about Riley Duran because of this camp. And they're saying he could crack the roster based on this camp. I've been saying it for a year based on Trevor Kuntar playing actual meaningful hockey games. And here's the difference between Kuntar and Duran. Duran was at camp. Kuntar was not. And had Kuntar been at camp, these people that are talking about Riley Duran would be talking about Trevor Kuntar instead.
100%. I will say, Riley Duran looked like someone who came out of a cannon and basically understands that there's a right wing, there's a forward position available, and it's going to be a dogfight for it. And he wants to do anything and everything he can to make sure he's at least being considered for it. Now, do I think he's going to win out on it? No. But, you know, it's he would be at the bottom of the potential depth chart to win that spot. 100%. Do I think he has a chance? It's not zero, but it's so minimal that, you know, to your point, Pasternak's locked up long term, and let's say Lysell comes in and he takes that job. Well, now you're right top 6 forwards, so now you're looking at either the third line or the fourth line. He could very well be a third line kind of guy, but you know, is he going to line up with the contracts that you have? Probably not. So now you're going to go out and you're going to have someone else who might end up blocking him. So like, does he realistically get time with the Bruins? Probably not. Probably not.
No, but the point is that everybody's putting the emphasis on this development camp and based what he's done there, and you can't do that because there are players that are ahead of him that weren't at camp. Whether it's John Farinacci, whether it's Trevor Kuntar, whether it's Fabian Lysell, whether it's Georgi Merkulov.
Right.
And you absolutely have to look at the business side of it. You know, I get asked a lot, why did the Bruins walk away from Reed Dick? And it all makes sense now, okay, that there just wasn't any room for him. They have Jeremy Swayman, who will get locked up, okay? They have Brandon Bussy, who they hope they'll be able to keep. They have Jonas Corpusalo for the next 4 years. They have Michael DiPietro in the minors, who could actually crack the NHL lineup. Where's the room for Dick? Let him go. We need the contract spots.
Yeah. And it makes sense. Does it suck to see someone like that who could have a very bright future leave the organization? Yeah, but I'd rather see them do it now when he still has a chance for himself to go out and
earn something.
Absolutely.
He got an invite to Jets camp. Let's see what he does. But It all tells me that the Bruins aren't just thinking about one player. They're thinking about the group, and this is how fans have to look at things. Is they have to look at the position, what they have, how long they have it for, and Dick just did not fit in. Neither did Kyle Kaiser.
Kevin, here's the room for Dick. Pause.
It's exactly it. So why tie a contract spot into it? It's the same way when they walked away from Mattias Mantakivy.
Yeah.
Very good European hockey player, smaller, not what the Bruins have been drafting lately. But who's ahead of him? How long do we have him for? And is it worth wasting a contract spot on when we can use it elsewhere? And that's how they decide.
And you also have the ability, having had this player in the system, and you've worked with him with your coaching staff and stuff like that. He's not all of a sudden just going to disappear from your radar. He's always someone that you can go back and revisit and see, 2 years from now, where is he now? Let's get an extra look at him and see if all of a sudden something happens and you lose someone to a career-ending injury and you need to replace them and someone you thought was no longer in your plans. There's still room to go back to him. Kevin says, Dick just didn't fit in. Okay, I'll stop.
We have women in the chat.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about Kevin that much. I do want to give Ace a shout out. Saw him over at development camp, so hopefully he's doing well. Saw people over there as well, so it was a good show out.
And I see the Matrix is here.
Yep. Good evening to you too.
I just had the radio going, and Hosier's Too Sweet came on, and she's the first person I thought of. So there you go. There's my compliment for the night. But there is some players I want to ask you about, Chris.
Sure.
Not the ones that, not the Riley Durans that everybody's raving about. The guys that I'm a little less on than the majority of the fan base, because I just don't see it the same way as they do. And I'm going to start with Andre Gassot.
Okay.
So what are your takeaways from him?
He didn't really stand out in any direction. That was my biggest takeaway. He's obviously not a high-end skill guy, but steady growth. He looked like he belonged in this group, if that makes sense.
Okay, because here's how I see it. He regressed with Boston College last season from his freshman year. And my biggest issue with him is skating. The new, to quote the Sweeney term, arrive on time. He can forecheck, he can do all that, but does he arrive on time? And I don't see it with Gassot.
Yeah, like I said, he wasn't overly standing out in such a negative way. Like you weren't constantly looking at him going, oh, he got there late. But he also wasn't arriving as early as other players. So it was, he was someone that I would just say average, He definitely seemed to have the drive of someone who's trying to have a bounce back year for sure. But again, it's a development camp where they're doing a lot of drills and then the scrimmage and I know we've talked a lot about him, but Brett Harrison stood out because he just kept shooting his shot stood out. He stood out well above others because of his shot,
Now, what was his engagement like? Because we've talked about how bad it's been numerous times.
It was significantly better than last year. There's still work to be done when it comes to getting in the nitty-gritty areas along the boards, but he's not embracing the hit, but he's not shying away from it as he used to. Okay. So there was, from year over year, there was improvement, but I would sit there and say maybe he's just not sure. Like, if you can give him a game during preseason so he can see what it's like to go up against NHL players, then maybe by next year he can have a significantly bigger jump, as long as he still has that drive.
Yeah, well, I mean, we started to see spurts of it in Providence this year.
Yeah.
When he does engage, he can be pretty effective. Another guy,
he put up more points in the 3-on-3 tournament. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people were focused on the rookies or the new draftees, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on them because they're still junior players yet to move up a level.
Right.
And we'll get more into them as the season moves on. But here's a guy that I really, really like, centerman. Okay, and when you think now that Lindholm is there for 7 years, Coyle's got a couple of more. Patra's going to be there for the next 15 years. We hope Johnny Beecher is there for the next dozen years. We don't know if Frederick's ever going to move back to the middle. But Don's Lock Mellis, what was his camp like? Because I'm beginning to wonder where is the future for him in Boston with the players I mentioned earlier being ahead of him and will be locked up for long term.
So there's a couple different kind of ways to look at it. I would keep him around definitely for this year. I think last week's episode you had said that maybe after this season they may look to trade someone like that. He had a really good camp, but he's definitely not all the way there yet. And depending on what you're looking at doing when Coyle's contract is over, I could see him slotting in that time frame. Now, then the question becomes, what about a guy like Dean Letourneau? What if he's a quicker project than we realize and what we think he might be? Would you rather have Letourneau or Lock Mellis? Like, you know what I mean? There's going to be a decision that has to be made there. Who was the other one? Someone else who really stood out, and Ian, a low quality Bruins fan on YouTube. He came up from South Carolina for the camp. His new favorite, Jonathan Morello. He really stood out. Granted, he's super young, so
he's still 17.
There's still a lot of time for this kid, but he stood out in all the right ways. Now, did he make mistakes? Yes. Could you tell this is a 17-year-old kid who's still on the hype of coming off the draft floor less than a week ago? Yes. But that won't be there next year. Like this, you saw all good things from him, minus a few little like caught an edge here. You know what I mean? Like errors that you would expect from a 17-year-old in his first development camp who was drafted a week ago and is probably operating on 30 hours collectively of sleep on the last week and a half.
And I'll tell you, I was absolutely shocked he was available in the 5th round. Absolutely shocked.
So he is definitely someone to keep an eye on long term, whether his future is with the Bruins or not. He's someone that you want to keep an eye on.
Now, which one do I want to go to first?
Do you want to stick with the forwards, or do you want to move to defense at all?
No, I want to stick with the forwards. We'll go through them. Let me go to Chris Pelosi first.
Another good one.
So did he tell us about his camp, how he looked for
solid camp, great hands. Good puck movement, good skating. Definitely has some work to still do in his overall game. And obviously being, 180 ish, 6'1" versus some of the other guys that were 6'3", 6'4", he seems kind of small, but he's also only 19. So I'd be interested to see how he continues to actually grow physically as well.
Now, in the scrimmages, did he play in the middle or was he on the wing?
He was mostly in the middle from what I recall.
Okay. Because
So
here's that center depth and how these guys are all going to fit in.
yeah, that he's the same. I would put him in that same Locke Mellis and Letourneau kind of category there, where you sit there and you go, all right, at some point you're going to have a spot for a centerman. Who's ready to take it?
Okay, so let's flip over to his former teammate in Beckett Hendrickson.
Okay.
What was his camp like?
Again, a lot of them had good camps. No one. Okay, not no one, but very few stood out for bad reasons, if you will. And not everybody stood out for a good thing here and there. It was consistent.
But Pelosi stood out more than Hendrickson. Am I correct?
When it comes to the hands and the puck movement and vision, I would say yes.
Okay, let's move on to, I don't know if he's my favorite, but he's up there. He's one of my top 3 favorite prospects. You know where I'm going with this one. Oscar Jelvik.
Oh boy, Oscar Jelvik. He definitely stood out because of his height. Kevin wants to know, yes, Cole Spicer was there. Had a good camp overall. Again, another one with hands that were just doing things that some of the other guys couldn't even try to think of. Skated well. Jelvik, same thing. The short guys stood out mostly because of going up against other guys who were 5 feet, 5 inches taller than them. In general, good board battles between both of them. But yeah, the center depth and the forward depth is going to be an issue down the road. It's like you said, it's tough to get overly excited about any one particular prospect just because you already have guys under contract and you already have guys who are looking to get under contract. So,
okay, so if you had to pick one forward, one of the forwards to be a surefire NHLer out of that group, forget anybody who didn't attend, just out of the group that was at development camp.
And I'm not including Matthew Poitras on that.
No, we're not. Let's not include Matt Poitras.
If I had to put money on one of them, you mean with the Bruins specifically?
No, just long NHL career.
It may not be with Boston, but I could definitely see it being Riley Duran. Riley Duran seems like the kind of kid who could be Marchand-esque, where he gets his break on a 4th line and then works his way up to a 3rd, maybe a 2nd line, just because he wants it that bad. His shot looked really good out there. Was it the greatest out there? No, it wasn't. Obviously, that went to Brett Harrison. But he, it's certainly not his worst attribute, for sure. And he was one of the ones, we'll talk a little bit more about it with some of the defensemen, one in particular, but he was constantly trying to pick the brains of the coaches as well. He would finish the drill, his turn would be over, and he would do what he could to try to get feedback from the coaches. Not everybody.
But he's never been a point producer.
No, and that's why I'm saying, like, he could very easily be a 4th or 3rd line guy that all of a sudden out of nowhere people look at him and go, try him on the 2nd line. You know what I mean? Like not quite like more physical version of Danton Heinen, if you will. You know what I mean? You
Okay.
don't want him. You don't want him on your second line. Could you put him there because of an injury? He won't screw things up. You know what I mean?
Okay, because to me, out of all of them, Yelvik has the highest upside by
Well,
far.
upside. If you're talking upside, if he can put it all together, I would say Brett Harrison. Because that shot, I shit you not, this kid must have had a 70% shot rate. Now, I get who it was shooting against, but I mean, even when they were just toying around shooting at empty nets, warm up skates and stuff like that, there was one. I think it was right after the scrimmage, right? He and two others. I want to say it was Edward and it might have been Cole Spicer. They stuck around, just the three of them, and they were shooting pucks on net. And they weren't shooting to get him in the net. They were shooting to hit the post. And at one point, he hit 4, 5, 6 in a row. And like solid pings. And they were different. They were crossbar. They were right post, left post. Just like he could pick a spot and just put it there. With pace, with accuracy. Again, all the tools, let's see him use the toolbox correctly.
Okay, let's take a couple of these questions before we look at the defense.
Court says, Dom, do you think Yelvik and Letourneau have a chance to play together next year in BC?
I would like to see the all Bruins line, the two of them nice. with Gasso, but I don't think it happens.
I don't think it happens because I think you want to have both Yelvik and Letourneau at center. I will say, Letourneau, for his size, again, it being a 19-year-old kid, looked great, given the fact that, I mean, this kid just came out of high school. This is his first pretty much on the ice.
The thing is that Yelvik is better on the wing.
Okay.
You leave him on left wing, Gasso on right wing. I'm not sure who they're going to put in the middle, but it won't be Letourneau. He'll probably start on their third line.
Kevin says, you know who else had a great shot? Senishin.
No, he didn't.
I was going to say.
Senishin never had a good shot.
Brett Harrison's shot is way better than Zach Senishin.
Senishin had speed, but never a good shot.
Yes. I remember watching how fast he was, and it sucked seeing him get the injuries, and I mean, it is what it is, though. Nice guy, though. Had him on the show a couple times. So, Bruin Gordoff says teams should change their name to the Boston Redwood. I mean, they're all getting 6'4" and above at this point. Bats out and about says, I love how the Bruins are getting tougher. That's how we win. Look at 2011. They could also score. Let's not
2011 could score.
Yeah. Kevin says, I don't see it with Lindholm locked up, Poitras in the fold, and your hope and dream. You hope is Dean pans out, Beecher seems set. I don't see it right now, but things can change. I think that's when we were talking about Lock Mills.
Yeah.
And even, let's see. I think that's getting mostly caught up here. Kevin said, "Oh yeah, it was his speed that everyone was on about. For some reason, I thought it was his shot. No, it was his speed for sure. But no, to your point though, Kevin, if he doesn't put it together, Zach Senishin all over again, but for a different reason. He's got all the tools in the making. Brendan says, can Yelvik play a bottom six style game to break the team, or does he need to be a top six skill guy to crack the roster?
I would say top six skill guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't look
or top nine skill guy.
I wouldn't look at putting him any lower than the third line. Like if you have an opening, I wouldn't hold it away from him just because it's the third line. But he's definitely the top six talent type. Let's see. Bear Force 1, Kostelic and Jones will make a big difference for the fourth line. Absolutely. And I think those two, and honestly, the odd man I have out is Kuntar. I think he's going to make a huge push for this roster. I was not thrilled with Brazeau's performance in the playoffs. Now I'm leaving the door open for him to have a good training camp and, barge right in and keep a spot on the roster. But you remember 2 years ago now, Mark McLaughlin got a cup of coffee during the league and during the year, and everybody all of last year, where's Mark McLaughlin? Why is he still in Providence? Well, he had stuff to work on. And you know what? I think we're going to see something similar with Brazeau unless he comes in and has a dominant camp.
Also, to add to that comment, let's not be too surprised if Trent Frederick wins the 2 right wing spot and Max Jones is on the third line.
I could see that.
Because if Matthew Poitras is on centering your third line, Max Jones is perfect for him. Nobody's going to touch Matthew Poitras with Max Jones on the line.
Right. It would definitely work. And we've seen Freddie and Coyle work well together before.
Yeah.
So I totally wouldn't be upset by that. I do think down the middle, you have it pretty well set. Poitras is going to be ready. He's already put on, almost 10 pounds, and he's got another 2 months to put on 7 or 8 more. He's got no restrictions in the gym. You've raved and ranted about his work ethic. He is your 3C to open the year. I would put money on it that he's your 3C to start. He's ready. If there were games tomorrow, he'd probably be playing in them. Did Brazeau come into the playoffs injured? He was injured just before the playoffs, but even still, and that's why I'm leaving the door open as well, because I mean, everybody was battling something in the playoffs, but he wasn't doing well in board battles. He wasn't using his physicality.
He was losing more physical battles than a guy his size should.
And so, again, I'm leaving the door open. If he was injured, battling something, it is what it is, and that's fine. That means he'll come into camp, he'll be healthy, and I will look at him 3 days in and be like, nope, that's his spot to lose. But Kevin says he's physical, he can score, he's got some pretty decent speed, he's worked well with Coyle plenty. I think he could put up 25 goals on that line. Are you talking about Freddie, or are you talking about...
He's talking about Freddie.
I think he's talking about Frederick. Because Court says Frederick gets 20 next year, which if he's on that second line, I could see him posting 20.
Yeah.
Let's see. I've been preaching Freddie being perfect for the Marchand Coyle line. It's a good fit there. I really don't hate that fit at all. Let's see. We're gonna come back to the defense here, but Batson About says, "Did you guys hear about a trade involving Trouba and Rempe for Carlo and Beecher and a draft pick?" I saw what you're talking about and ignore it. Ignore it. That's all I can tell you. It's just noise that went viral for no reason whatsoever. That's a dumb deal for both sides, really.
I never heard it, so that goes to tell you.
It was going on I don't know, a bunch of social media. It was like a graphic that went out, and it literally was supposed to be the Bruins get Trouba and Rempe, and they send to New York Beecher and Carlo. And it takes no genius to look at the cap and go, it doesn't work for Boston at all. Considering the fact that Trouba is $9 million or $8 million, and Carlo's only $6 and change.
No, Carlo's not that much.
No, he's 4.6
change. Yeah,
4.6. Yeah. So the math don't math on it, for one, and two. If you're Boston, why the fuck are you giving up one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league, plus someone with the potential to be one of the best bottom 3 centers in the league? It's just not worth it. Let's see. He got 18 last year, so 20 is an easy yes. I would agree with that for Freddie. It's not just the $4 million Carlo contract. It's the term and it's the forward with the upside. So, yeah. Let's see. Kevin says, I really think Freddie has the potential to be a second-line power forward. He wowed me last year with that step. He's not, and he's not even in his prime. Kevin, are you thinking like a Milan Lucic type forward almost? Because I could see that for sure.
No, he'll never be a Milan Lucic. Never, ever, ever, ever.
You don't think so?
No. No.
Okay. Let's see. Brendan wants to know, any concerns with Marchand's production next year?
No.
You might see the standard age slip, but I would expect him to be at least a point per game player still.
You'll be close to it.
Let's see. Were there any other questions that I missed back here? No? All right. So you want to dive into the defense a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Frederic Bruin, because a lot of people liked him at camp. Other people had lesser things to say.
He overall, he had a very, very good camp. I would definitely say that. He had moments where you would look at it and go, can't keep doing that. But then, like, if it occurred in a drill that was a multi-rep drill, he wouldn't make the same mistake twice. So, like, you could see learning. You could still see mistakes. I'm looking forward to seeing him be in Providence. I think Providence is exactly where he should be right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's absolutely not ready to be your seventh defenseman, which is good because he's not going to be. Would he be the first defenseman I call up? No, I think he might be the second. If you get hamstrung with short-term injuries, takes a puck off the shin and he needs to miss a week while you're without Wotherspoon because, he sprained an ankle and he's out for 3 weeks and you need to just call up that extra defenseman. The first guy I would call up would probably be Jackson Edwards, to be honest with you. But Bruin is on the short list to be considered. Again, Providence performance is pending.
They haven't got much down there to call up, to be honest with you.
No, but Jackson Edward had, of the defensemen, I would say he had one of the top two in the defensive side of things when it comes to their camp. If he wasn't one, then he was two, and I would put him right up there overall with Jonathan Mirenberg.
Well, he was the next guy I was going to ask about because some people really raved about his camp.
Mirenberg, what was great about him was one, puck movement, vision, the talent level's there, and he looked like he belonged in that regard. But with Mirenberg, it was consistency. He wasn't making basic mistakes either. Sometimes with Bruin, the mistakes he would make, you would sit there and go, you shouldn't be making that mistake. Like, you just got lazy on the drill, like, get with it and just do it right. With Mirenberg, it was just steady, consistent professionalism and even across the board. And
he's had a season of high-level pro hockey.
And you can tell he approached it like a pro. Is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Jackson Edward slowly elevating his game across the board. Everything is making a gradual increase across the board, except for the physicality. That's not going anywhere. That dude is ready to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Was there another direction that you wanted to go, or did I get ahead of you too much?
No. I want to ask about another guy. We talked about him last year. Christian Kostadinsky.
His skating went from absolute garbage to needs improvement.
Big step, eh?
And that is saying a huge thing. Like, he got way better. They're still working with him on it.
Mm-hmm.
one thing I did notice though, all right, when the drill, when whatever they were doing wasn't focused on skating, he is much better at skating. He's overthinking it. So like they were do like backward skating from blue line, you know what I mean? Like, and you could tell he's thinking about each stride, you know. But then there was a board battle that they did where he's just trying to, you know, work the boards, maintain puck possession, and he's thinking so much more about the puck that he's just skating. You know,
Right.
he's overthinking it so much to his detriment that if you can just don't think about skating, just do into his head, he'll get much better at it quicker. You know, every skating drill though, he would sit there, he would finish it, and then you could see him talking to himself of like, just not good enough, like fuck. And it's like, no, you did okay on it. There's so much with this kid's confidence. If you could find it for him when it comes to his skating, he will kill people.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed at his first game back in Sweden this season that there was an improvement in his skating.
Yeah.
So that's good news because he's a big boy. He's mean, or he can be mean. One more on the defense for you.
Sure. I think I know who you're going with. One of two players.
Ty Gallagher.
He looks like he's aching ready for his new start over in what is it, Colorado he's going to?
Yeah, Colorado College.
He came out on fire, looking to make a statement, you know, looking to bounce back from a bad year. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does in Colorado. I would assume he picked that school because he's going to get ice time there. He's not going to be a seventh defenseman again. You know, I wonder if it was just a case of other defensemen were just seen as being better than him, so they tried to do a 7-man rotation and it just wasn't working. And you know, the more he plays, the better he seems to get. So he seems like he needs more ice time than a rotating 7 defenseman unit can give him. There's still work to be done, but this kid wants it. You know, he's physical. He's in every puck battle. He's not afraid to take the body. He's not afraid to get hit on his body. You know, he was taking on players who were bigger than him by fairly significant amounts. You know, he would do board battles. He was up against, you know, Mast. He was up against Murenberg. He would be in the scrimmages. You know, he was going up against, you know, Gassot and, you know, some of these guys who are 6'4", 6'3", and yeah, I know it's 3-inch difference, but he was holding his own against those guys. So size wasn't an issue for him.
That's good to hear. I'm hoping he has a bounce back here. You know, other than that, do any of the invites?
Yes.
Like Ty Shebeldayoff, he signed today with I forget who he signed with. First he signed with Maine Mariners, and then he got an AHL contract from somebody else today. So he's gone.
I mean, he looked okay. He again, not someone who stood out well above the rest, but there's some tools there. You know, I can see someone wanting to work with him. But honestly, the one that was most surprising to me, other than, you know, at 17, Morello, as a camp invite, Master Domenico.
Yeah, a lot of people were impressed by him. So what stood out?
Just, I guess the best way to put it is that drive. You know, the desire. He wants it. He wouldn't give up on plays. He would, you know, he was checking hard. He was completing checks. He wasn't backing off from things. And anything the coaches were like, hey, you need to do this or this, he would just go out and do it, if that makes sense. He wouldn't he would try to incorporate the feedback as much as he could, as quickly as he could, into what he was already doing well.
And he's going to Notre Dame, right? I'm pretty sure it's Notre Dame.
I believe so. I'm going to check the sheet here. He is. Yes, he's with Notre Dame. Yeah, so not like crazy far, but definitely someone that I would keep an eye on in college. I mean, give him another year at school. Like, again, someone who made his physical presence known. Did he win every single board battle? No. Did he win every puck battle? No. But he wasn't afraid to move the body around, to try and use what he did have for weight. And again, he didn't give up on anything. Even if he got beat, in the scrimmage, like, he would still bust his ass to get back into the play.
Yeah, and I mean, I talk a lot about compete level, and that's compete level. You have to have that to become an NHL player. I just want to say this to anybody who's listening, that the reason why I'm not asking a bunch of questions about the draft picks is because they are just coming out of junior, and in some cases even lower level prep school and junior A. There's a long road ahead of them, and they're not near NHL level right now. So that's why I concentrated with Chris on some of the guys that are closer. And, hopefully giving you guys an example of how the team looks at it, like what's ahead of them and all that before they can make it to the NHL.
Yeah, and like we were talking about who's in front of who and stuff like that. That's where someone like Christian Konstantinsky comes into play. Right now, your NHLD is all set. Your AHLD could use a little bit of help, but he's certainly not ready for that role. That being said, if things progress and in 2 years, someone like Jackson Edward is now your bottom pair right side defenseman on an entry-level contract, then by the time he's ready to move up and take Carlos' spot, maybe on the second pair, the third pair is open. That's 3 or 4 years down the road. Now you have someone who might be ready for that spot. And that's what, 6 years into having him under team control, or 5 years under him being in team control. So as a 7th round pick, if he is able to take that on, that's a huge win.
Yep.
It may have taken him 5 or 6 years, but if that's the guy that you hit on and he is 6 years in, 25 years old, and he's your bottom pair right side defenseman, and his job is to just clear the front of the net and go out there and take the puck off of other people's sticks, that's a win. That's a huge win. Meanwhile, in the 6 or 7 year development of this player, you've made the playoffs, we'll say 5 or 6 times. You've made it to the second round 3 or 4 times, possibly a cup final. Like, that's exactly what Don Sweeney's job is. Keep the pipeline filled while trying to win. And it might take trading a guy like Oscar Jelvik or Riley Duran and including them in a deal to get the bridge guy, to get the Andrew Peak, and that's okay. That's very much okay.
Well, let's talk some Jeremy Swayman.
Well, real quick, I want to get caught up on a couple of these comments.
Well, let's do that first.
Let's see. Bats out and about said, honestly, if Swayman agrees with a small percentage, not too small, I think we can get another goal scorer. We're going to come back to Swayman, so I'm glad we read that one first. Osterley, first call. I'm not sure. He could get beaten out. Again, we're going to have to see how everybody comes in camp. It says, Mav says, Edward will eventually, but not until mid-year earliest. Again, camp will be the determining factor, Mav. I don't disagree that that's not possible, but Edward had a really good camp. Everything was on even ground for him, which is really a good thing to see. What about Bentley, Boyd, Bavaro? Bavaro was another one who had a really good camp. Overall, he had his moments, but overall, very good camp. I really liked what I saw from him, but still, not close enough. Reguli likely another option before Edward to start. I don't know. I don't know. They had opportunities to call Regula up last year, and they chose not to. He could just be an AHL filler guy for them, where he's more of an AHL guy for them, and they would rather see someone like Edward get the pro level experience, so he knows, because we've seen that before where we saw it last year with Merkulov. Merkulov is going to be better because of the 4-game sample that he had last year. It didn't go well. By any stretch did that go well for him. But he's still going to be better for it now because he got those 4 games. That's why I say they could go for a guy like Edward first. Agree or disagree?
You know what? Honestly, until we know what camp looks like, it's hard to say.
True. All right. That's fair. Let's see. Gotta love the physical presence. It helps the goal scorers with confidence so they can score. Gotta bounce early. Have a great night, you two, Matrix. Anytime. Great to have you. I grew up watching players like Cam Neely. Even did a video on him on my YouTube channel back then. The goal scorers had confidence because of a Lyndon Byers or Jay Miller. Goal scorers are going to score goals. They're going to find ways to do that. Period. End of story. Austin Matthews gets goals no matter who's on his line because he's a goal scorer. So, he'll score. Austin Matthews will score goals if he has Matt Rempe on his line or if he has Mitch Marner on his line. He's a goal scorer. That's what they do. So, where do you want to begin with Jeremy Swayman?
The meltdown that Bruins Nation is having. We went through this with David Pastrnak. If they didn't sign him by trade deadline, you absolutely have to trade him. You can't lose him for nothing. And it went on for months. Listening to that argument, that debate that was almost unanimous that you have to move him. And when did he sign? March the 3rd.
I do find it funny, the meltdown that's occurring over it.
It's like, it's not as easy as saying, here's an 8-year, $64 million contract. Everybody signs on the dotted line.
Right.
It's not that simple. There are things that need to be negotiated. And I'll give you one. Let's say Jeremy Swayman wants a $6 million signing bonus in 2026. Meaning, if there's a lockout, he's guaranteed that money. That's $6 million. The Bruins don't operate that way. They didn't give it to David Pastrnak. They didn't give it to Brad Marchand. They gave him a little bit, but not 75% of their salary. Okay? The Bruins, in turn, can turn around and say, well, okay, you want lockout protection. How about this? What if the league and the PA decide to extend the CBA by a year while they negotiate a new collective bargaining agreement? So how about we give you $3 million in 2026 and $3 million in 2027?
As signing bonus.
Right. Which would be guaranteed to him in the event of a lockout. Because if he goes for $6 million in 2026 and nothing in 2027, and they do extend the CBA for a year to negotiate a new one, then he's out of luck.
Right.
He gets nothing. These are the nuances of contract negotiation.
Right. And then there's also I want full control over where I go if you want to trade me. I want a full no move clause. Okay, well, if we're going to give you the full no move clause, it's going to take X off of your salary because we aren't going to be able to move you should we need to for whatever reason.
Right.
So now the question becomes, what's the value of a no movement clause today? And let's also not forget this, because I've seen a lot of comparables to Sorokin, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin, so on and so forth. Now, Hellebuck was another one. I think it was Shesterkin that I saw the most comp, I think, with, as far as the or maybe it was Hellebuck. But again, games played now becomes an issue because Hellebuck has been as a 50-plus goal game starter for, what, a decade now?
Yeah.
And Swayman has never started more than 43. There's a big difference.
46, I think, was his high.
46. So, but there's still a big difference between 46 and 60. Now, the Bruins don't like to have their starters go over 55 games. They just don't like to. Will they? Yes. They've done it with Tuukka Rask before. They're not looking to play him 70 games, though. And I think by bringing in Korpisalo, that kind of reinforces that. But they need to know we can go 60 plus another whatever in the playoffs. So you're figuring almost another 30. If every round goes 7, you're going to want him for all 7 games in all 4 series. So that's another 28 games. So let's go with that Hellebuck comp. Well, he signed a 5-year quote-unquote bridge deal. If you go with based on percentage of the cap, this year that contract that was 5x5 is now 5x6.8 based off of percentage of the cap. Well, if you're trying to go 3 more years, it's not just, oh, well, here's $7 million for 8 years, because the cap's also going up a hell of a lot more over the next 5 years than it did in the last 5 years. So how much are those extra 3 years of unrestricted free agency worth to someone who is 25 years old and will be 33 when the contract ends instead of 30?
Not only this, people have to remember, and I've been talking about this for a while. It's now everybody's talking about it. If Swayman is under pressure, or his agent is, from the PA, from other agents, from other goaltenders through their agents, to hold out for as much as he can get, because he is setting the bar for the next group, the next guys to come up, like
Ottinger
in Dallas, or
Shesterkin's up soon.
Yeah. So
Spencer Knight will need a new contract at some point. He'll be part of the next wave after Swayman. I get it. His is a little different because of the program and all that stuff, but still, he's going to need a new contract. Stolarz.
So Swayman is setting the market.
Absolutely.
And everybody wants him to hold out. So,
well, and again, when it comes to the cap, there's 4 things that are going to affect the projection of the cap that you didn't have last year, that you didn't really have over the last 5 years. Because that's kind of when that goaltending market was set, was the Vasilevsky Hellebuck contracts that were 5-year bridge deals taken for 25 to 30 years of age.
Yeah.
1, Arizona is no longer a revenue vacuum for the entire league. 2, Utah is now a revenue producer for the league. So that's a swing massively in one direction. It counts as 2 in of itself. That's how big of a swing it is.
Seattle and Vegas
are revenue machines for the league.
They're in the top 7, I believe, in the NHL in revenue. And Utah's expected to crack the top 10.
I would not be surprised. So now you have 3 new markets that are producing as well as some of your top producers over the last 20 years, we'll say. They're all brand new to the league, and you just got rid of the one market that took up and lost the most revenue in the league, essentially.
And I firmly believe we have expansion in 2026.
I wouldn't put it past them. I really wouldn't. Now, is that going to go towards salary cap revenue? Probably not. Some
No, not the money the owners get, but the revenue that comes in.
revenue will, yeah, for sure. And so we're also looking at, we know the cap is going to go up another 5% next year. So
at least
that's the amount I think that they're comfortable saying. So that would bump it from 88 to what, 92.4 or something like that. 3.4.
Yeah, something like that. I actually think it'll be over 93 mil.
I was gonna say, let's round it to 93 million, and then based off of what they did this year, where they bumped it up, let's call it 95 million for next year as a round number. That's next year. It'll easily go up to 100 million 2 years from now.
Easy. I'll tell you what's going to make a big difference to next year's cap is the Montreal Canadiens. Their TV deal, their local television market deal has expired. And their deal is with TSN, RDS, which is the French version, and one other one. It's worth big bucks.
Someone's going to come in and grab it.
It's worth big bucks. Someone's going to come in and take it and pay the money. And you got to remember, 50% of it goes towards the cap. 50% of hockey-related revenue goes towards the cap.
And look at the projection for the team in that time frame.
Yeah.
The team is going to be one that, Amazon will want in on that deal.
Right. So you figure if it's a measly $100 million, that's $50 million towards the cap, which is over $1 million per team towards the cap.
Just off of one deal. Yeah. So, but if he's looking for an 8-year deal, the negotiations are a lot more complicated. Like Kevin said, I just wish there weren't so many people posting online, quote, just sign Swayman, unquote, on every Bruins post. It has to be one of the most annoying things I see. People are trying to oversimplify it. That's the thing. Listen, yes, we had deadlines that came and went for arbitration for both sides. This was something that, if you've read anything from either side, neither side wanted to go to arbitration. Fine. Arbitration would have been a date assigned by the league to say you need to have a deal done by here or we're going to do it for you. And neither side wanted that. So instead they said, let's take our sweet ass time. Let's both look at the numbers and see what we want. You see what you want. And at some point we'll get in a room and we will continue to work our way closer to a middle ground.
Yeah. And we've seen it with Pasternak. We're seeing it now with Swayman. In a couple of years, we're going to go through this thing all over again with Mason Lohrei. And a couple of years after that, we're going to go all through it all over again with Matt Poitras.
If it was that simple, it would already be done.
Yeah. I'll tell you what the simple negotiation extension for them is going to be is Brad Marchand.
Yeah.
That's going to be the simple one. Brad's going to be like Patrice and say, get everybody else done, then let me know when we can talk.
And he'll be 35, over 35, so he can do a bonus deal, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Let's see. I agree, brother. They'll sign once they are ready. I think they're ready to do the deal. It's just a matter of, think about Don Sweeney's schedule recently, too. He had to go straight from end of the season, making calls, because let's face it, they started making calls on free agents right away. And those deals don't just happen overnight. So he had to go right into that, all the way to Vegas for the draft, gather all their information for the draft so they could make their selections too. Let's not forget, it's not just show up. This isn't your fantasy football draft where you just show up and you go, this is my plan, and then this is what we're going to do if. Like, it's not a 20-minute draft. Like, they prepare. So his schedule's been pretty fucking crazy. So I don't think it was a top priority. They just wanted to get it done as soon as they can, but as soon as they can, got put off. What do you guys think of Mac Jones? We were talking about him earlier. You said that he would be a good fit for Poitras on the third line.
Yep.
Who would you put on the right side with Jones and Poitras if that line were Geeky?
Yeah.
Do you think that would hurt Poitras' offensive production a little bit?
No, because I think Jones has more production in him than we've actually seen at the NHL level. I really do. So that doesn't worry me. Is he capable of doing what Freddie does? No, I don't think so. But my biggest concern is somebody taking runs at Poitras. And it's not going to happen. Like, we talked a lot about having Freddie and Geeky surrounding Poitras because, players are going to think twice about going after Poitras if Freddie's on the ice. But if you can get more out of Freddie on the second line with Coyle and Marchand, you got to make that move. If he's your best answer in that spot, you got to make that move. And then the obvious choice to move up then it becomes Max Jones. And I tell you, nobody's going to touch Poitras with Max Jones on the ice. If they do, they're gonna pay the price.
Yeah, and as Kevin says, Jones is also someone who's going to be able to protect Poitras. This Boom, Dom and I are on the same page. All we have to do, Kevin, to be on the same page with you is think about food. So,
yeah.
Bat says, dead, touch some grass. Fact, I'm out every day farming in upstate New York, and I'm originally from Boston, but love life. Yeah. Talk about Kevin's comment about just sign Poitras. So, definitely Geeky. Yeah. I mean, that seems to be a good spot for him. Plus, Geeky and Poitras can kind of switch off depending on who the draw face-off is against. So, I'm just trying to think if there's much else to go over this week. We're kind of getting up to that 8:00 time frame. A lot about Dev Camp, which was a lot of fun to be at. Like I said, saw a lot of people there. It just, great environment, nice laid back. I'm glad that they opened that up to just let people come in. Let's see. Bat says Sweeney sees potential in others that other teams don't. Well, every general manager likes to think that they do. So it's just a matter of, do they fit with the players in your team? As the great line in Miracle states, is not looking for the best players, you're looking for the right ones.
Yep.
So we've seen 4 of the best players in the league all together on one team, and they haven't done jack shit.
Here's something I want to touch on. So our friend Court did a survey on Twitter or X about the best Bruins defenseman of all time. And your choices were Bobby Orr, Ray Bourque, and Zdeno Chara. And before I could place my vote, somebody had already placed a vote for Ray Bourque and Zdeno Chara. I love them both. Great players in their own rights, Hall of Famers. Bobby Orr, man. Bobby Orr.
I was going to say, the issue with Bobby Orr is the duration of his career versus like if you were to tell me there were 2 votes cast before yours and they were both for Ray Borg, I wouldn't agree with it, but I could at least understand it.
I can't. I can't understand.
I can
Can't
understand it
understand
because 22-year career, consistent offensive production, shutdown defenseman, like the consistency, the high level of play for the duration of which he was able to do it. Again, I don't agree with it, but I can understand. And
22 years. I can understand 22 years.
My guess would be younger voters.
Doesn't matter. Go do some research before you vote. 8 straight Norris trophies, 2 scoring championships from a defenseman. That's Art Ross trophies.
I agree. And Kevin said Bobby Orr is arguably the greatest player to ever touch the ice, not just for the Bruins. I agree. 100%.
Wasn't it one season he won all 5 major NHL awards?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. All I'm saying is I remember when I was 9, 10 years old, I remember the yellow Pooh Bear jersey with Bruins written on it and loving watching 77 Bork. All right. And guys with, Sergei Samsonov and Joe Thornton and Byron Dafoe and, like I get why someone will say 34 and younger would make that vote, but it's wrong. I'm just saying I can understand why they would, because they didn't go out and do the research. They don't know, and they don't understand exactly what Bobby Orr was able to do.
There's only one statue outside TD Garden.
Yep.
And it's not Ray Bork's and it's not Zdeno Chara's. But I'm disappointed in court that he didn't have Eddie Shore on the list.
Brendan, saved by Defoe. Yes. Loved Cam Neely. Cam Neely, you can throw him in that group as well. Kevin says the only answer is Bobby Orr. I don't think it's even a discussion, in my opinion. Like Don said, Bork will always be one of the greatest defensemen to play the game, but he doesn't touch Orr. Kevin, I agree. All right. But eliminate 90% of the hockey knowledge that you have in your head and go from a layman basic fan who's barely paid attention for the last 25 years. And the only thing they know about Bobby Orr is that he dove through the air scoring a Stanley Cup winning goal.
Yeah, but Chris, on the same token, you can't agree with him 100% and then say you understand why the other side would choose. It doesn't work that way.
I'm saying I understand the mindset of someone who's not educated to make that decision. I'm saying they need to be more educated to make the right choice. The one that I don't get is who was the third option that you had mentioned?
Zdeno Chara.
Listen, I love Chara to death. Probably the greatest free agent signing in the history of the organization. But come on. He ain't no Bobby Orr. And he's still I would put him in that order too. Orr, Bork, Chara.
I wouldn't. Eddie Shore would be in my top 3.
I was just talking about those 3.
Brad Park would be up there for me.
From what I've heard of those guys, they would definitely get some consideration. I don't know enough about those 2. I was just specifically talking about the 3 mentioned in Court's tweet. So Kevin says, I can't eliminate that. It's impossible. I didn't grow up with Orr, but I've watched plenty of him and I know the research. It's people's job to do the same work for themselves. I don't disagree. All I'm saying is if you don't have that education and you just go, that's the name I know, click. That's how you're going to get a couple votes that way. Bats Out wants to know, what do we think about Tuft?
Well, him and Max Jones were picked back to back in the draft. Forget what draft year it was now. It's true, Kevin. Go look it up. I think there's a lot to like there. I really do. But it's good, man, it's going to be a tough lineup to crack. It really, really is. You know,
Yeah,
so how long is he here for? Does he want to be in the American Hockey League for a couple of seasons? He signed a 2-year deal, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah. So, because it's going to be a tough roster to crack.
absolutely. No, it's going to be tough, and we'll have plenty of time to go over our projected lineups and stuff like that. I do think Swayman. Do you think they sign anybody else after Swayman, or is he going to be it for the offseason?
No, I think there's one more coming.
Do you think they
Whether
start with the PTO?
whether it's a PTO or a contract, I think there's one more coming.
I'd be interested to see who it is.
I
don't disagree. I would think at least one more comes in because they just love that internal competition.
Yeah. I think here's a name I'll throw out there. Everybody can think about it for a week, and Chris will promise you we will talk about it next week. Is Philip Zadina?
That's definitely interesting. An interesting name to put out there. I'm actually just trying to pull up a list of who's currently still on the market right now.
We don't need that now. Everybody do your research for the next week, and next week we will talk about Philip Zadina.
And potentially some other low value or low risk, low dollar signings that could be that last player potentially that we might like to see. Bats Out also says Eddie Shore showed up late, drunk in a storm, and played and fought and won. He was a different type of player. So different eras. Let's see.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever going to be a defenseman greater than Orr. I've heard people throw around Makar, but I don't see it.
No.
So anyway, with that, it is just past 8. I want to thank everybody for jumping in and being patient with my computer issues as we started up here. Hopefully we don't run into those anymore going forward. I had everything all set up too. That's the part that pisses me off. My computer did an update while I was at work today, and it just shat the bed because of the update. So anyway, Dom, any final thoughts as we look to sign off?
No, I think we covered a lot tonight.
Awesome.